You're not really saying that music can kill, are you?
Yes, I am.
Music can be a very powerful thing. Nothing galvanizes the emotions as quickly.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a real good time together. We are talking with John Hoffman from the one and only Primus. And I feel like this is when we can say this is an interview a year plus in the making.
Yeah, at least.
So, needless to say, we are very excited to talk with John. Newest member of Primus, joined about a year and a half ago. Talked about
He's
that.
awesome.
He talked about a bunch of stuff. It was a lot of fun.
He's really cool. His story is really cool. If you're not a Primus fan, you will like him.
Yeah,
And you'll
he's
become a
great.
Primus fan.
Of course. So we should also discuss this. I am just returned freshly from the Carnival of Sins.
Yes, you escaped.
I did, thankfully. That evil clown. Yeah. So if you aren't familiar, Carnival of Sins, one of the big summer tours featuring friends of the show Tesla, future friends of the show Extreme, and your future ex-husband,
Both
his
of them.
band, yes, Motley
Right.
Crue. I give it 5 years with you two.
That's a really good run.
Well, because I feel like you can only drive a boat with your dong for so long, and at some point you're gonna have to come into port.
You think?
I just, for some sort of, sustenance.
I don't know. He's done pretty well so far.
This is true.
Now he's pretty happy with his current missus.
He seems to be okay. Yeah.
But he did switch to brunette, so that is hope for me.
Okay, we're getting there.
And funny brunettes,
This
so
is true. Yeah.
I know.
Okay. You got two checks in that column.
Right?
So, but while I was watching the show, I was thinking about the fact that, uh, you know,
That Tommy Lee has a beautiful mouth. He's really great on drums, and Nikki Sixx is an amazing bass player.
well, what I was thinking was the origin of Motley Crue.
It's great. You didn't read the book?
I did read the book. It was part of our book club.
I know.
But I kept thinking about the book, their early days, and the fact that, like, times have changed. Children grow older. I've gotten older too.
Yes.
And Nikki Sixx made a brief reference to this, but I think they need to do something a little bit bigger to, as David Lynch would put it, change your hearts or die.
Okay.
He mentioned whether you're Republican or Democrat, gay, straight, whatever, we are here to celebrate you, which,
Yes.
okay.
I get what he was going for. It was a
Right.
good sentiment. Yeah.
And then they had four women writhe around the stage and sing the octave part below Vince Neil, which was an interesting decision.
I know, but it worked weirdly.
How many bands have a lead singer who is, I don't want to say a charisma vacuum, but like, you're not watching Vince for the
Well,
two
no.
hours.
No, he's definitely not the lead. He definitely has times when you watch him, but even back in the day, it was which one do you watch?
Right, of course. The big
Because
question.
even Mick back then, in his non-outgoing ways, was super compelling because he wasn't doing crazy stuff.
So, okay, let's put Vince aside.
Yes.
But I had this idea that
Okay.
Motley Crue could further this idea of everyone is welcome into the tent of the Carnival of Sins.
Yes.
We don't need to strip the whole thing down to studs. We can build on
Okay.
what's there, right?
Yes.
Take one of their hits,
Okay.
and after it occurred to me, it was very hard not to sing this in my head while I was watching this show.
Yes.
You don't even have to change much. You change three words.
Okay.
Who is dancing at the Seven Veils on the Sunset Strip? They, them, theirs. Think about it.
All right.
They, them, theirs. Yeah, come on, it works, right? Oh, come on.
Except when people get who don't feel the same way we feel about
Well,
and jobs.
this is always the problem with, I think, the Crew. They're one of those bands that you have to. It's a purple audience. Let's put it that way.
It is a purple audience.
But our
But
friends,
also, again, some of our they, them, theirs friends may not want their theme song to be at a adult
that they're
club.
dancing in a strip club. Fair, okay.
I mean,
It
I
just
love it,
right,
but I'm
just something
also
for everyone to think about. You know.
right.
So how's it going? You guys are heading to Europe in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, actually, it's going to be even sooner. I think I head out on Monday, and it's the Wednesday before that Monday as we're recording this. So I think I leave in about 5 days, and I think our first show is on January 31st, or excuse me, July 31st. Excuse me.
So how does that work at this point? Do you get a list of songs you should familiarize yourself with, or is it much more spur of the moment? We're playing this.
It's pretty spur of the moment. The Colonel usually writes our set list about an hour or so before we actually take the stage. And so a lot of it is just kind of based on his feelings that day, things that happened, events or something that might have stuck in his mind. It kind of shapes the songs that we're going to end up playing that night. So whenever I first got the gig last year, it was kind of on me to start learning all the material, and basically be ready for whatever's coming. I still have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of songs that I haven't really learned yet, at least well enough to play on stage with Primus. But there's a good amount at this point. I think I'm familiar with at least about 50 songs or so. And so there's a good amount of stuff that we can, pull from and play.
Do you have a blind spot
Do I have a blind spot?
of like if you pull anything off of Green Naugahyde or Desaturating Seven, we're in trouble?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's plenty of those. Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah. To be honest, a lot of the stuff I've been struggling with is some of the older material, some of the Herb material from the early albums. And it's not that necessarily that I can't play it, but there's a few songs that they're just so inherently him and his style that it's not really about playing it technically correct. It's about capturing his vibe. And I've found that that's a little bit difficult because he's one of the greatest drummers of all time and has such a unique style. So, that's something I've had to work on and I'm still working on, is really not just putting myself into a technical aspect of like, okay, this is how the songs go, but to, put myself in a more of like an artistic aspect as well and try to get all of the subtle nuances to make it feel as much like him as I can, which is not an easy chore.
Well,
Especially when you've got an hour to be ready to be on stage every night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
No matter
no
how hard
doubt.
you practice.
Some of the I'll get the set list, we'll all get the set list, about an hour or so before, and sometimes I'll take a look at it and I'll go, yeah, all right, these are songs that I'm good with. I can go and knock these out, no problem. And then other nights there will be a set list and there'll be, one or two songs on the list that I'm not as keen on or haven't played as much. And so I'll spend that hour usually refreshing whatever the song or two is that I'm feeling the most insecure about.
you mentioned trying to learn Herb's style or just his vibe and how he plays. And then you add to that, you've got Brain. And I don't know if you guys have done much of the Jay Lane era of stuff since you've joined, but how hard is that to make it sound enough like them so fans are going, yeah, that's how the drums go in this song, but then remain true to like bringing what you've got to the table and making it your own? Like that's a very delicate balance. Has it been hard doing that?
Right on. Yeah, well, you kind of nailed it. It's not easy. It's definitely because it's such a legacy band, and there have been different drummers that have been recorded that are a part of that legacy. Throughout the timing that they were in the band. It's like you just said, it's not just one drummer I'm trying to emulate. It's essentially three, and they all have very different styles. So it's you have to put yourself in a mindset of like, okay, this was this was a Brain song. This is off the Brown album, and Brain plays this way, or this is a Naugahyde song, and this is a Jay thing, which is a lot more hi-hat heavy and crispy and just sort of a, you know, a tighter sound. Not that Brain isn't tight, but the Brain stuff, you know, the drums were a little bigger. They were a little more like kind of loud sounding. And then you got the Herb stuff, which is obviously, you know, the stuff that a lot of us are most familiar with off the Frizzle Fry and Seas of Cheese and Pork Soda and all the stuff that's kind of known as the classics at this point. And then you say, you know, I go on to try to pepper in my own little flavor there, you know, and so it's a delicate balance, you know. I have to find my spots, you know, to add my nuances versus playing a song that has a fill that's very specifically got to be a certain way, because there are some songs that if you don't play this particular fill, everybody's going to look at each other and go, what was that? He didn't play the fill, you know? And so, you know, it's tough. And also kind of to add to that, you know, speaking of Jay, you know, he was on Naugahyde, which is a lot of, you know, what most people are familiar with, but he was also a part of a lot of the formation of Primus back in the 80s. And so a lot of these songs that we are in love with and familiar with, there's actually versions of them with Jay playing, you know, like with Sausage, or like some of the early demos, and those styles of him playing these songs are a lot different than kind of what they formed into on the recordings that we're most familiar with. So I've been doing a lot of research on how Jay used to play a lot of this stuff, because the Colonel really enjoys Jay's playing a lot. And some of the songs have developed a certain way over the years, but Colonel really actually likes the older way that they were played. And so there's a couple songs that we do that are a little more reminiscent to the way that Primus played them 35 or 40 years ago versus the way that people heard them in 2024 on tour or something like that, you know.
Does he, and I guess Lara to a lesser extent, give you kind of the freedom to add your own stuff? Did they kind of know, like, you're going to do your own thing here? Or are they kind of sticklers for, like, this is where the fill goes and I'm used to hearing it right there?
It really depends on the song and the timing. Some stuff is very specific, and Colonel will definitely give me specific instructions on what he wants to hear. And it's kind of funny. A lot of the songs that we've learned, it's kind of been on me to learn it, and then I'll bring it to Les and Larry and say, hey, okay, let's try it and see if I'm ready to pull this off on stage. And we'll start playing it, and Les will go, nah, you got some more work to do, bud, you know. And so I'll go back and hit the shed and try it again. And you know, it might take 3 or 4 tries before everybody's happy, and then we'll start playing it on stage. And so it's a bit of a process. There's other stuff that you know, it's more like, as long as I'm landing within the structure of the song and not making it sound like something different, then they give me a lot of freedom to add my own little fills, my own little splash stuff and hi-hat beats and stuff. So it's not exactly super strict, but there are certain songs that are dead on. They have to be as close as I can make them, you know. So I try my best to keep everyone happy. And it's honestly, there's not as much of that, I would say, as there is me being able to play the songs and add my own flavor. I think they like that more so than me trying to be a copycat exactly of the drummers and play everything note for note. They want me to be myself, but as I said, it depends on the song. If it's a certain song, they want it this way, you know.
Well, there are certain songs that even if you're the drummer who created it, you go play that live and you don't play it in a version that the audience wants to hear it or thinks it should be, you're screwed. Doesn't matter if you're the one who originated it. So I get that. But also, you're a band that's moving forward too. You're a band that's going to be bringing more stuff out. So you need to be you in it, which is kind of exciting. And
Very.
do you kind of know which way you're going with it yet when it's just you?
I think we're still trying to figure that out, but I think it was very important for them whenever they were deciding who was going to be the next drummer. They were thinking very much in the future and like what the future of Primus was going to turn out to be. They weren't just looking for somebody that was going to be able to play the songs and call it a day. They were looking for somebody that can do all of that, but also get into the writing room and have contributions that are going to stick and be, a part of the Primus sound. And so we've spent a lot of time in the jam room. We've recorded some things. I think at this point, I'm still pretty new. And so Les and I are still learning each other a little bit. I should say I'm trying to learn Les a little bit. I want to be on his page 100%. And it's not that it's that hard to do. He's one of the greatest bass players of all time. So he's not incredibly difficult to jump in with and start playing music because he's so talented. But it's definitely a thing where I'm working on it. I don't think I've really even tapped into, I guess, my full potential, if you will call it that, as far as what I'm bringing to the table, because I'm still in a position where I'm trying to say the right things, trying not to say the wrong things. I'm just trying to get along and all that. But as that, comfort zone is starting to widen a little bit, I'm finding it easier to create and make things happen.
It's been such a whirlwind in the past year and a half for you, I am assuming. Was there a moment when you kind of had like okay, now I'm actually in Primus, like walking on stage, or was there something where it was just like, okay, this is real. This is not some insane fantasy or dream.
Man, I'm not even sure if I've really hit that point yet. And I'll have moments where, like you say, I'll walk out on stage and I'll see thousands of people. I'll be behind the drums and I'll make eye contact with Colonel, and we're playing My Name is Mud or something, like, some classic Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, here I am. This is it. But it's hard for me to think of myself as the drummer for Primus instead of the new drummer for Primus. I still feel new, and I still feel that there's a lot to learn. And I think that I'm not quite at the point yet where I've fully put my stamp on this position. I see it's coming, but it's so surreal. And there's been so many things. You were asking about a specific point, and I feel like there's been I don't know, a couple hundred points at this time, where every single day there's something that happens that is a unique experience, or some just mind-blowing opportunity, or I'll get the chance to meet some hero of mine. It's all just it's very surreal, and it still takes a little getting used to. But compared to last year, compared to 2025, I'm a lot more comfortable in my own shoes at this point than I was last year. Last year, it was like you said, it was a whirlwind. It was 1,000 miles an hour. And once it started fast, and it didn't slow down. And so as I'm learning, I'm sort of trying to stay afloat at the same time. And, and now I'm going from being a local drummer in my relatively small hometown to meeting people like Danny Carey and Billy Strings and Jack White and Stuart Copeland. And, the list goes on. And every single time I met one of those people, I'm sure my face just dropped, and I'm, trying hard not to go into goofy fanboy mode, and keep it cool. So I found it a little easier to just sort of accept my day-to-day life and realize that things are different now, and it's probably never going to be whatever it was before Primus. It's a wild ride. It's like, going to a theme park every day or something, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. You don't quite know what's going to happen, but it's an incredible ride, and I feel like it's just getting started.
You mentioned Stuart Copeland. Now, didn't your dad open for the Police? Was that? Do I remember that correctly?
No, you're dead on. I was a young baby whenever that happened. So I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and so the first few years of my life were there. My dad was in a band that was very popular on the island at the time, and the Police came and played a show, and my dad's band that he was in was fortunate enough to get to open for them. And so the story goes, and I've told this story a few times, and I can't quite verify it because I was so young. I don't really remember, but this is a story I've been told by my mom and my dad my whole life. But apparently, at that concert, I pointed at Stewart's drums and I said "dums," and looked at my mom like, I want to play drums. I said "dums," and so according to them, my first word was "dums," but I meant to say drums, and I was pointing at Stewart's drum set. And so, as cool as that sounds, again, I hope that's a true story.
I feel like that's a true story.
And
That feels true.
I would love to think it is. I've been telling that story long enough that it's got to have some,
For sure.
And if you got to pick a drum kit to be like, I want that, that's a pretty good one.
That
right?
Is,
yeah.
Pretty iconic.
Right.
In putting together your kit, because I know you've been working with DW to like assemble your kit into your. There you go. Exactly. How much do you need to take into account what the guys before you played in putting that together, or do you have your own? Because I know you had 2 bass drums at least last year. I can't remember if you had them out this summer, but like, and some of it was for the Brown album stuff. Like, to be cognizant of what these other guys played on these tracks, how much of that do you need to think about when you're putting that kit together?
Quite a bit. There's like we were talking earlier, there were 3 drummers, all had different styles, all had different kits. And over the decades, as the songs have been written, there are parts of certain songs that have certain instruments in it. And so all of those instruments that are in these parts have to be considered when putting the drum set together. And so before this gig, I was playing mostly locally and regionally, and I played a very small drum set. It was like a trap kit, 1 hanging tom, 1 floor, couple cymbals, and because I'm loading my own gear, I'm driving my own, you know what I mean. So, and I was playing multiple gigs every week, and so it gets to a point over the years, and as you grow up and become an adult, you don't want to carry all that crap around, and so getting this gig, it was kind of a throwback to back in the days whenever all I did was play drums in my jam room, and I wasn't really playing gigs, and I had a monster drum set that I fashioned after Herb quite a bit. Back in the day, I really emulated the way he set up his drums. And so there's a lot of thought process that goes into it, as well as the sound itself, because Les is not a big fan of loud cymbals. I'm not either. I'm not a big fan of loud, crashy, washy cymbals. I like tight, clean sounds. And so thankfully for me, that lines up exactly with what Les likes to hear. So on my drum set, aside from my ride cymbal, which is a 22-inch, and my ozone crash, which is a sort of like a version of a China cymbal, but not quite as abrasive and loud. Aside from those 2 cymbals, all of my cymbals are pretty small. I use multiple splash cymbals, and even my 2 main crash cymbals are only 16-inch. So the cymbal setup is a tight, kind of a clean sound. And then on the left side of the kit, I have a lot of bells and whistles, I guess we'll call them. A lot of ting tang, clink clank kind of sounds, metal, cylinders and things that you can kind of just bang on frying pans, stuff like that. And if you look, those instruments have been a part of any Primus drummer's setup for a long time, going back like many, many years. Like, you can look at Jay Lane's setup and see the exact same stuff that I'm playing on my kit, the exact instruments. So all of that stuff is pretty important whenever they need to be there, because like I said, certain songs have that sound.
Yeah. I don't know if you are aware of this, but so on the internet, it can not always be a lovely place to be.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like the reaction that the fans have had to your joining the band has been so incredibly positive, and the excitement level. My son and I went to go see Santa last summer, And just the excitement and the buzz of people being like, it's one of us playing drums with these guys now. And like this feeling of like, he did it, and there you are on stage with Josh Freese next to you, which not intimidating at all to be sitting
No,
next to
not at
him.
all.
Yeah. But like, I can only imagine how much easier that must have made this induction into this world by having people just be like, yeah, you did it. And not like, who the hell is this guy? And what does he have on these guys to hire him?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That was a big fear of mine whenever I was, you know, getting the gig and got the gig. I was, I'm a pretty sensitive dude. I spend, some time on the internet. I do read comments a lot of the times, and I see how nasty people can be a lot of the times. And I was kind of preparing myself for that. I'm probably not the type of person that would have taken to a lot of negative feedback very well, to be honest. But the fact that so many people were overwhelmingly supportive and positive, it made me feel so good, and it took a lot of pressure off of me. It was I didn't expect it. I didn't really expect the general Primus fan base to accept me and bring me in as easily as they did. And it's an amazing feeling, and I'm very, very thankful for it. And I got to say that the Primus fans are without a doubt some of the greatest fans that I've ever seen. It's such a great community. Everybody is generally such a kind person. I've really never seen anything quite like it, and I feel very, very fortunate. And kind of to add to that, as the drum derby was going on, and I was finding out who some of these other drummers were that I was up against, my other contenders for this gig. A lot of these people were, I mean, they're huge heroes of mine, like people I've looked up to for a long, long time. And so whenever I started finding out some of these names, I was talking myself out of it. I'm going, oh man, like I'm not gonna stack up to these guys, And even if I do, they're not gonna pick some dude from Louisiana that, generally speaking, nobody knows about, whenever they could have this person who's so well established. And so that was even kind of coming into my mind as I got the gig. I thought that people were going to be um, kind of talking crap about why they didn't choose drummer X over me because they were so well known, and I really didn't see too much of that either. Most of the negative comments that I've read have been along the lines of like something like, I prefer Herb. Yeah, I like Herb drumming better. And I can't even get mad because I'm like, I love Herb. I love Herb's drumming. I totally get it, So I can't even say that that's some negative comment. That's just, that just is what it is. But yeah, the short answer, to wrap up all that rambling is I feel incredibly fortunate that people have accepted me and see me as a true member of the band.
Do you have a favorite song to play every night?
I do. Yeah, my favorite Primus song is "Dirty Drowning Man" off of Antipop, which that's a Brain song. I love Brain's drumming. The Brown album and Antipop are a couple of my favorite albums, and Rhinoplasty as well. I love that era,
Hmm.
and it's because whenever I first started getting into Primus, that was the era. Like when I was kind of coming into my own and discovering new bands, and I discovered Primus, it was during that time. And so I really, really I fell real heavy into that era and that sound. And so yeah, Drowning Man. I also love Bob's Party Time, which is another Brain song. Those are my two favorites. But I have to say, on a sort of a different level, I've really, really started to enjoy playing Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. And a lot of that, I think, is just because of my own sort of nostalgia.
Hmm.
That song was on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and I'm a huge video game nerd, and I just remember the feeling of playing that game and hearing that song, and it just brings me back to just an awesome time of my life. It makes me feel good, and I know that that's such a beloved song from the band. I feel like when we play that from an audience perspective, it things go up a notch and people get excited as soon as Les kicks into that bass line. And so I feel like it's a really impactful and powerful moment every night when we play that song, and it's a lot of fun.
I have to ask, and I know you're not going to answer, but I know you guys have been recording and there's supposed to be a Primus record next year. Are you guys done recording?
I will answer that. No, we are not.
Okay.
We have done. We've recorded a few songs, and like we just put out the old Grizz,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did a cover of Holy Diver featuring Puddle's Pity Party on
Yep.
vocals. And so we did Little Lord Fentanyl last year, which was actually part of my audition process. I was thrown that song as part of the audition, and I had one night to come up with my drum part. And
No
same with
pressure.
Gergo, who was the other drummer in the finals. It was part of his process too. And we each had the ability to kind of show what we would bring to the table in a recording situation. And thankfully for me, the guys liked what I came up with. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the drum part that's on Little Lord Fentanyl is the actual drum part that I played during my audition, for the drum derby. So what you're hearing on that song is me nervously trying to get through the song with these brand new parts that I just came up with, and thankfully it worked out.
Did you know that when you were recording it?
I did. I didn't know that they were going to release the song the way that they did. At the time, I was just looking at it as another, just another part of the test. It was like the final test, really, because at that point I had done I submitted all my stuff, through the internet, and that took a couple of months from the time that they announced that they were looking for a drummer until the auditions started. So I had been in, kind of correspondence with people, the management mostly, up to that point, and then I had my initial audition in Los Angeles, and then from there the final audition, which was a 3-day process. So by the time I got to that part of this, where it was I'm recording the song, I had already been through quite a bit of audition process at that point. So it just felt kind of like the final test. And but I do think it's cool that we ended up using the actual drum part from that time, because it's like it's almost like an imprint, or just like a photograph of what was going on at that exact moment. But to wrap up this part, we've done a lot of recording at this point. I feel like it's been a lot of sort of just coming up with riffs and seeing kind of what sticks, and also spending a lot of time in the room with Les and Larry to just get on their level and, have me become completely the drummer that they want and that they're looking for, and they can work with without having to think about anything. So you just have to you have to spend time. It takes you can't usually just jump into a room, especially with guys like that on their level, as creative as they are, as used to doing things their own way as they are. It's a process. Not that it's been difficult, but it's just, like I say, I feel like a lot of the recording process at this point, up to this point, has been more of a getting to know you, as opposed to this is what we're going to show the world.
Mm. So it's still ongoing. There's still more to come, but
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I would imagine, and this is all speculative, but I would imagine after we get back from this Europe tour, we'll probably start getting back to the writing. I couldn't tell you how long that would take, but I feel like the goal is for us to have a product by next year, so that we can release that, tour on that album, on the new album, have the artwork and the imagery and all the things that go along with the releasing of a new album. So yeah, I would imagine we're going to spend the better part of the rest of the year, and maybe a little bit of early next year finalizing this thing, putting out
it's a nice way to work. It's a nice way to work your way up. You start with the 7-inch, the Little Lord Fentanyl, and then you go to the Grizz EP, and the next step, of course, you take the training wheels off, and it's an LP. Makes complete sense.
Yeah. I'll be honest, as crazy as this ride has been, and as much as I've been thrown into the fire, I really haven't gotten burned that much by the fire. And I got to say, it's been um, the step-by-step process has been, for me, thankfully, a pretty easy one. And to not get into it too much, but to just kind of recap, I did the Derby. I got the gig. A month later, I had an international gig in Dominican Republic. That was the one where I was on stage with Danny Carey. We sort of shared the bill.
No pressure.
That was it, exactly, no pressure. But that was one show, so I
Right.
wasn't thrown into a situation where we were hitting the road right away. I did the one show. About a month later, that was the Sasanta 2.0 tour, which if people aren't familiar, it was 3 bands on stage. We'd all play about 3 songs, and then the next band would play 3 songs, and so on and so on. So it was like a revolving door of bands, and we played the same songs every night. So we only played about 10, maybe 12 total songs on that entire tour. So as I'm fresh in the band, I'm on a tour where I'm not obligated to have to learn everything and have it stage ready, right away. So during that tour, I was learning a lot of songs for the next tour, the Onward and Upward tour. And so as we were on the Sasanta tour for like sound checks and stuff, I would be learning the songs that we ultimately pulled out on the Onward and Upward tour last year. And I think at the end of that tour, we played 47 different songs. So I went from playing 10 on the first tour to 47 on the next tour. And then, so like I said, it's been a gradual thing. I wasn't expected to, within a month's time, have to know the entire catalog and
Right.
all of the material, so it's been nice. It's been a perfect momentum, I would say.
Primus starts their European tour this Friday, July 31st, and A Handful of Nugs, the new EP, is available right now wherever you get your music. For more information, check out their website, primusville.com.